This video is an introduction to section 1.3 where we're talking about the midpoint formula and the distance formula. And so I'm going to just start with the midpoint formula, which you see in front of you. And you're going to use this formula when you have a coordinate plane. So you've got your x and your y axis. And let's say that you have 2 points, A and B, and you want to find the exact middle of that segment. So in order to do this, you will use this formula, which means you're going to add the x values of point A, so I'll call that x1, and the x value of point B, which is x2. You add those two together, x1 plus x2, and you divide by 2, which makes sense because you're trying to find the middle. That gives you your value for the new midpoint, the x value for the new midpoint, and then you do the same thing with the y values. So if I call point A has a y value of y1 and point B has a y value of y2, add those together and divide by 2. You will get the exact middle of, and I'm just going to say it's right there, you'll get the exact midpoint or middle of the segment. The word midpoint can be used a little bit differently, and this is if you don't have a coordinate plane. So if you don't have the x, y axis, let's say you just have a segment. So in this statement, it says B is the midpoint of AC. So I'm going to say that this is segment AC. If B is the midpoint, it means that it has to be right in the middle. So I'm just going to say that B is right there in the middle. Now, a couple of things come from this. If B is the midpoint of AC, number one, we know that AB has to be congruent to BC. It has to be exactly the same distance from A to B as it is from C to B. The other word that I want to just talk about for a minute is the word bisector. And, or, you know what, not bisector, let's just use the word bisect. If I could get my eraser to work here. I guess not. I'm just going to cross that out. The word bisect. So if I take AC and bisect it, it means that I'm cutting it in half. And so you're going to see that word bisect used a lot. It is similar to midpoint in terms of midpoint means you're in the middle, so you're cutting that segment into 2 equal pieces. That's the same thing that bisect means. Another formula that you're going to need to use in this section is the distance formula, and this one involves the use of a square root. And so what you're going to do is, again, you're assuming that you have a coordinate plane and you have 2 points. So I'm going to put point A here and point B here. And what we're going to do when we use the distance formula is we're going to figure out how long is this segment from A to B. And so in order to do that, you're going to need to have the ordered pair of A, so x1, y1, and the ordered pair of B, x2, y2. And what you do is just plug it into this formula. So you can see that you're going to subtract the x values and square them, and you're going to subtract the y values and square that difference. And then you add those two together, and the last step would be to take the square root. So make sure you do order of operations when you're using distance formula.